Hello again, and welcome to the first session. As I mentioned, my name is Nora Guerrera, and I'm a strategist, futurist, founder, and Serendipity scholar, and CEO and managing director of Northome Group. Today, I get the pleasure of talking with you about serendipity and the art of intentional connection. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, serendipity is the faculty or phenomenon of finding valuable insights, ideas, and things not sought. The Oxford Dictionary defines it as an unplanned, fortunate discovery. Christopher Bush, the author of The Serendipity Mindset, defines it slightly differently. He writes that serendipity is an unexpected good luck resulting from unplanned moments in which proactive decisions lead to positive outcomes. It's going from this to this to this. Studies suggest that around 33 to 50% of all major scientific discoveries are unexpected or accidental. This helps explain why scientists often call their discoveries lucky, yet they themselves are not able to define exactly what role luck played. What happens when you take action on these accidents or unplanned fortunate discoveries? Well, let's look at some examples. You might be familiar with this one. The slinky, invented in 1943, mechanical engineer Richard James was trying to create springs that could keep sensitive ship equipment steady at sea. After accidentally knocking some samples off a shelf, he watched as they walked down instead of falling. It seemed interesting, so he partnered with his wife to turn his invention into a children's toy, one of the longest lasting and most popular children's toys on the market. And of course, where would we be without Post-it notes? We haven't done a collaboration session without them. Dr. Spencer Silver was a scientist working at 3M researching adhesives. In the process, he discovered an adhesive called a microsphere that stuck lightly to surfaces but didn't bond tightly to them. At the time, they were pursuing bigger, stronger, tougher adhesives and didn't have any use for his discovery. It took Silver years to find a use for it. It wasn't until another 3M scientist named Art Fry, who was struggling to keep paper bookmarks in his hymnal for his church choir practice, reached out. Fry remembered hearing about Silver's microspheres and thought there might be an opportunity. Together, they partnered to develop the product. Even then, the full potential of the product wasn't realized until they used it to leave each other notes around the office. Another is Velcro. Velcro is everywhere. It's used in sneakers, backpacks, jackets, wallets, watch bands, and children's toys. Velcro even helped hold a human heart together during the first artificial surgery. It all came to be because of the curiosity of a man named George de Mestral. In the mid-1900s, de Mestral was frustrated that cockleburrs got caught on his clothes and in his dog's fur when he was out walking. As an engineer, he began to wonder how these birds could attach themselves so tenaciously and began to study them more. In doing so, he discovered they had spiked fangs that acted like a natural hook and loop fastener. It took de Mestral nearly a decade of trial and error to create a fastener that would cling as well as the burrs. Eventually, after partnering with a French weaver, they learned how to make a nearly indestructible burr-like nylon hook and a fabric that the burr side would stick to. And this is the Velcro we all know and still use today. And then there's this guy, Jeff Bezos, shown here in a 1997 video in which he talks about how he came up with the idea for Amazon. While he was working at a qualitative hedge fund, he came across what he called a startling statistic, that web usage was growing at 2,300%, yes, 2,300% a year. So he decided he'd try and come up with a business plan that took advantage of that growth. After making a list of about 20 different products that he might be able to sell, he picked books as the first best bet. He decided books were great because there are more items in a catalog than any other. Music is second, in case you were curious. And you couldn't make a physical bookstore as good as an online one because of that length of that category. And thus, Amazon was born. So what do all of these have in common? The individuals were looking for possibilities. They were open to the unexpected. They were listening, learning, and making connections and asking what if. They acted on the connections and opportunities they saw, and they created something unexpected and new. It's not about chance, luck, or magic. These individuals created the opportunity for serendipity. They encountered it, they made intentional connections, and they created something amazing. Anyone can create an opportunity for serendipity and take advantage of it. And let's be honest, we need it now more than ever. We're facing unprecedented challenges such as climate change. According to the United Nations Environment Program, 1 million of the world's estimated 8 million species of plants and animals are threatened with extinction. 75% of the Earth's land surface has been significantly altered by human actions, and the UN Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that 10 million hectares of forest are cut down each year. We see political unrest around the globe with armed conflict on almost all continents. We see mock elections and a global humanitarian crisis. And we're seeing staggering inequality. The World Economic Forum reports that in 2021, 150 million people were homeless worldwide. 1 in 4 people lack access to safe water. 42 million people across 45 countries are on the brink of starvation or worse. Gender and racial equality continues to be a challenge. And we see a flattening of culture as individuals around the globe are consuming the same types of content via the same major tech platforms through the same algorithms. We all live in a highly filtered and highly curated experience that crosses geographic and cultural borders, creating what Kyle Chayka, the author of the book Filter World, calls a harmonization of tastes. We all like the same things, but let's be honest, it's kind of bland. And this isn't new. In 2005, Thomas Friedman highlighted the impacts of globalization in his highly acclaimed book, The World is Flat. In The World is Flat, Friedman focuses on the globalization of business, industry, and the creation of a new global economic order. In today's environment, it's not just economies and industry that have flattened, culture has flattened as well. We have wicked problems. We need new and innovative ideas. We need to discover connections where there previously weren't any. We need to create solutions that never existed before. We need to seek and create the possibility of serendipity and create intentional connections. But how? First, create space for serendipity. What do you do every day? How much is sitting at your desk answering emails or completing tasks? When, where, and how will you experience serendipity if you're inside at your desk alone or with the same colleagues and friends you see every day? Get up, get out, and take a walk. Change your physical space. Studies have shown that the physical environment has a major influence on one's likelihood of being exposed to new ideas. For example, research has shown that employees who sit at cafeteria tables of 12 people tend to be more effective than those sitting at tables of 4. More people create more serendipitous conversation and a larger network. So what do you think that says for those of us who eat lunch at our desks every day? Both IBM and Google have designed their headquarters in ways that enhance the cross-pollination of people and data across disciplines. Google credits the positive collisions made possible by its campus in Mountain View with innovations such as Street View and Gmail. They even analyze data to identify and map isolated teams and adjust the space and structure accordingly. Pixar's office was famous for being designed to accelerate interactions by putting writers with designers with executives to encourage individuals to interact with one another and be exposed to new ideas. You also need to open up mental space. Don't fill it with noise or distraction. Give it time to think, process, wonder, and consider, and allow for incubation time. A connection might not be immediate, or an insight might not feel important at the time, but it may just need space. Next, be open. Engage in a two-way conversation with the world, whether it's getting your coffee, meeting something new, or encountering something unexpected. Have an open mind and an open heart. Relevant insights and inspiration are everywhere. Be open to seeing them. Expose yourself to new ideas. What are you reading? Who are you talking to? Are you listening? What do you do with what you hear? Intentionally expand your view, seek new insights, ideas, and sources. Cast hooks. Create the possibility of serendipity by offering open-ended opportunities for others to engage with you. Whether it's an email to someone you admire, a LinkedIn connection request to someone you'd like to talk to, or an open-ended response to a question. You can cast hooks for others to grab onto and engage with. For example, when someone asks you what you do, you can answer with a fact, closing the conversation there, or you can answer by sharing what you do and what you're interested in. It's the difference between I'm a strategist and I'm very interested in serendipity and how new ideas are unlocked. The first is a dead end, while the second casts a hook for others to grab onto and engage with. Connect the dots. In order to create new ideas, you need to see links or opportunity between things that were previously thought to be unrelated. This is Jeff Bezos and the ability for the internet to create the best bookstore, and now everything store, in the world. This is Dee Mistral connecting cocklebur plants with fabric for holding things together. Pursue connections between things previously thought to be unrelated. Play what if and push yourself beyond the obvious. Do this with intention. You have to prompt yourself. Ask, what have I learned that I see obvious connections for? What is interesting but doesn't yet have value to me or a connection yet? Put in the effort to connect the dots and see what could be. Take action. An idea not pursued is nothing. It's often the ether for someone else to take advantage of. As our examples illustrated, no one starts with a big idea. It often begins with initial intuition. Then we incrementally improve it over years of hard work, throwing out the bad ideas along the way. And remember, your reaction to a set of inputs and experiences will be different than someone else's. Don't cheat the world of great insights or ideas because you never did anything with them. Do these things and you'll start to see new, unexpected things. You'll connect them and begin to create previously unrealized value in the form of insights, a new way of doing something, or a solution. Sounds easy. All these things are doable. We can do them all, but we don't. And it's not entirely our fault. Let's be honest, there are real barriers that we have to acknowledge and work around. The first is algorithms. Algorithms are everywhere. They dictate what comes up in our online searches, what is shown in our Maps app, what social posts we see, and what news articles we read. These digital algorithms also drive our in-person behavior. What restaurants do you choose when you're in a new city? What retail shops do you visit? Which friends' content do we see the most? They prevent us from seeing unexpected things, getting lost, or taking an alternate route. They direct us to restaurants like all the other restaurants we already go to. They feed us articles similar to the ones we've already read. And they create filter bubbles, invisible cages that reinforce the current state and block us from experiencing new things. Another barrier is the human habit of seeking similarity over diversity. We like to go to things that feel familiar, that are similar to what we already know, whether it's a task we know we can do well, or a coffee shop, or a possible new friend at the park. We build routines. As you think about your morning today, how much of what you did was the same as what you do every other morning? How much was different? It's hard to shake it up, to seek diversity instead of similarity, but it is essential in order to discover new things. Diversity must be sought and intentionally pursued. Underestimating the unexpected. Underestimating the unexpected means it's easy to discount things out of what's out of the ordinary for us, things that are different from our own worldview that we think of as typical, normal, or expected. You know, the answer to what we think people usually do, or they should do, or even what's possible. But therein lies the opportunity. The unexpected might be the seed of the next great thing. For example, convention would have said people would never rent out their couch or guest room, and that people would never choose to stay in them. Well, Airbnb is currently worth $103 billion. People said that that people would never buy cars over their smartphone, but 23% of cars purchased in 2022 were bought from a smartphone. Or that people would never let a complete stranger pick out their meat and produce and deliver it to their door, but they do, making Instacart worth nearly $10 billion. Don't underestimate the unexpected. Next is conforming to the majority. It's so easy to be like others. We see it all the time, from micro behaviors like speaking the same or dressing the same, to larger examples like Facebook going all in on virtual reality and Apple announcing they're making a headset. There's comfort in knowing that one is behaving like their peers. and even like the individuals and the organizations they admire. But it's a big risk too. Nothing new or amazing ever came out of trying to be like others. We're all familiar with this one. A closed or fixed mindset is in a constant state of fear, scarcity, and jealousy. A closed mindset won't explore something new for fear of failing. A closed mindset won't share something they've found interesting for fear someone will steal it. A closed mindset doesn't celebrate success, it schemes to outperform next time. It causes intelligent individuals to kill great ideas, for CEOs to fire and demote the best candidate for their succession planning, and it prevents risk-taking. It constrains one's worldview of what might be possible. And last but not least, time. Time is a real thing. Schedules and expectations are a reality, but they alone are not the thieves that truly take our time. We are. We fill it up with tasks and meetings and obligations until we can't remember the last time we thought about something deeply or the last thing we read instead of skimmed. New things and new ideas need time for thought, reflection, and consideration. Think of a song you didn't like until the 20th time you heard it, or a new fashion style that your eye didn't come around to for a few months, or a new piece of art that never struck you until the moment it did. The same can be said for new ideas and new insights. Things that we encounter that are new or different, they need time, and we need to give it to them. So don't let barriers be blockers. None of the things I just talked about are impossible to overcome. Instead, think of the Slinky, the Post-it notes, the Velcro, and let's not forget Jeff, and the iPhone, and search, and AdWords, and Airbnb, and Zoom, and electric vehicles, and Spotify, and water purifiers in rural Africa. There are so many great ideas out there yet to be created. As you leave this session, I challenge you to pursue situations in which you can encounter new ideas and new experiences. Approach your experiences with an open mind and engage in a two-way dialogue with the world. Cast hooks and seek triggers. Intentionally look for connections and be open to the unexpected. Pursue what you see and discover. Build and create. Add what you are seeing back into the universe. Become a serendipity seeker and create intentional connections. So with that in mind, here's how you can connect with us if you want to learn any more about this. We have our Design Thinking for All newsletter, meetups, tools and templates, speaking workshops, things like this. We'll send them all as follow-ups. But I do want to leave a couple minutes for questions. So if you have a question, put it in the Q&A. I see a couple in there already. And we'll try and get to them. All right, one of them I see is any best practices to prevent becoming overwhelmed by either trying to accomplish this or by all the things to consider, right? The first step is accepting that you can't intake and consider everything. You can't expose yourself to everything, and you can't solve for everything. So start with pursuing new in general, considering some, and see where it takes you. I think you'll also find that talking about things with others allows your serendipity search to feel a little more like a dynamic group activity and less like a solo quest. Yeah, another one. What are good ways and places to discover new things outside of my normal circle and routine? So this one's in some ways tricky, but I would say, using peers and friends, asking what are they reading lately, what have they seen, trying to connect with people you don't normally connect with, to just ask them things or ask them, what's going on, and just see what comes in. I think part of it is really being open, really thinking about what you see, what you intake. I mean, I sometimes think about it as the coffee shop, right? I can just quickly order my coffee from someone there, and it's just very short exchange versus I can say, oh, how are you? Or, get to know them, or the same thing with people in line. but also just seeking out different sources, right? So not always going to what was recommended, right? Let's say you really like a good Substack or a newsletter and they're recommending others. They're probably recommending others like them. So instead, go back and search other things and see what else you can find. So question about personal experience with serendipity recently and how are these principles playing out for you in real time? So I often have these experiences. I think mindset is part of it. But for me, it often comes in of, we all subscribe to lots of newsletters and sometimes we read them, sometimes we don't. The same way I subscribe to podcasts and sometimes I listen to them and sometimes I don't. I have found over time that things that I'm thinking about, that my brain is noodling on in the background, that I'll randomly pick a podcast and it'll turn out they're interviewing someone that it has some adjacent connection to it, or at least I'm making that adjacent connection. And I've gotten better at writing them down and realizing what those connections are. But I've found that the more I'm thinking about things, the more I'm looking for things, the more connections I begin to see.